The most powerful man in the room was about to be destroyed by someone he'd never met. She walked in wearing a suit that cost more than his first car. He didn't recognize her face, but she knew exactly who he was. 24 years ago, he walked away from a pregnant woman because ambition mattered more than family. He became a billionaire. She became his competition, and she'd been taking everything from him for 6 months without him realizing why. Now they sat across from each other in a glass office overlooking the city he thought he owned. "I know who you are," she said calmly. His throat went dry. "I'm your father," he whispered. She smiled. Not warmth. Ice. A father raises his child. "You were just the man who ran." He tried to explain. The opportunity. The timing. The fear. She leaned forward. "Did success keep you warm while my mother cried herself to sleep?" He had no answer, because the daughter he abandoned had spent her entire life preparing to beat him at his own game. And she was winning. The only question left was whether he'd lose his empire, his conscience, or both. Have you ever made a choice you couldn't take back? A decision that seemed right in the moment, but haunted you for decades? Before we dive into this story, hit that like button if you've ever wondered whether success can erase guilt. And subscribe to Echoes of the Heart with Dr. Collins, because what you're about to hear will change how you think about ambition, family, and what it truly means to succeed. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end of this one. Let me take you back to where this all began. Seattle, present day. Marcus Vail stood on the balcony of his penthouse, 49 years old, staring at a skyline he practically owned. The Space Needle glowed in the distance. Below him, the city pulsed with life, traffic, ambition, the kind of energy that had fueled his rise from nothing to everything. He wore a custom Italian suit that cost $8,000. His watch was worth more than most people's cars. In his hand, a glass of bourbon aged longer than some of his employees had been alive. Marcus Vail wasn't just rich. He was Seattle royalty. His company, Vail Industries, had transformed the Pacific Northwest commercial real estate landscape over 2 decades. Shopping centers, office complexes, luxury apartments, medical facilities. If it was concrete and steel and generated revenue, Marcus probably built it or owned it. Forbes called him a visionary. Business Weekly put him on their cover 3 times. He donated $20 million to children's hospitals. Ironic, considering what he'd done to his own child, but we'll get to that. From the outside, Marcus Vail had everything a man could want. Wealth beyond measure. Influence that opened every door. Respect from people who mattered. A mansion that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. But here's the thing about glass houses. They're beautiful until you realize everyone can see inside. And what nobody saw, what Marcus had buried under decades of achievement and charity galas and magazine covers, was the one chapter of his life that no amount of money could rewrite. He took another sip of bourbon and checked his phone. 47 missed calls. 23 emails marked urgent. All from his executive team. All about the same problem. Someone was dismantling his empire, piece by piece, and he had no idea who or why. Marcus walked back inside, the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a 360-degree view of the kingdom he'd built. His assistant, Trevor, a nervous man in his 30s who lived on coffee and anxiety, was waiting with a tablet and a folder thick enough to be a weapon. "Sir, we need to talk about the Portland acquisition." Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "We'll outbid them. We always do." Trevor's face suggested otherwise. "We already tried. 3 times. They matched us every time, then went higher, then go higher again. Sir, we're already 15% over market value. If we go any higher, the board will." "The board works for me, Trevor. The shareholders don't." Marcus set down his glass harder than intended. "Who is this company?" Trevor opened the folder. Documents spilled across the marble counter. Market analyses, property records, financial projections. They call themselves Beacon Housing Solutions. They've been operating quietly for about 3 years, but in the last 6 months, they've gone aggressive. They're targeting every major development we've marked for acquisition. Marcus scanned the papers. Beacon Housing Solutions had outbid Vail Industries on 7 properties in 6 months. 7. In 20 years, Marcus could count on one hand how many times anyone had outbid him even once. Who owns it? Trevor hesitated. That hesitation made Marcus look up. Her name is Sophia Brennan. The name meant nothing to him. Age 30. MBA from Stanford. Law degree from Columbia. She started Beacon 3 years ago with what appears to be a small inheritance and a lot of nerve. Marcus studied the photo Trevor handed him. A young woman with determined eyes and dark hair, pulled back in a professional bun. She looked focused, hungry, the way Marcus himself had looked 25 years ago when he was clawing his way up. What's her angle? That's the interesting part. Trevor pulled up another document. She's not flipping properties for profit. She's building affordable housing. Marcus almost laughed. Affordable housing? In Seattle? In Seattle. Portland. Tacoma. Spokane. She's buying land in high-value areas and developing mixed-income communities. Subsidized units alongside market rate. It shouldn't work economically, but somehow her numbers balance. Nobody builds affordable housing out of the goodness of their heart. Trevor. What's the real play? As far as we can tell, that is the real play. Her company mission statement literally says, "We measure success by families housed, not profits generated." Marcus picked up the photo again. Something about her felt familiar, though he couldn't place why. The shape of her face, maybe. The intensity in her eyes. He shook it off. Find her weakness. Everyone has one. Investors she depends on. Contractors she can't afford to lose. Permits we can delay. I don't care what it takes. Vail Industries doesn't lose to startups run by idealistic 30-year-olds. Trevor gathered the papers. There's one more thing. What? She's speaking at the National Real Estate Summit next week. Keynote address. Now Marcus did laugh. She's been in business 3 years, and they gave her keynote? Trevor nodded slowly. The industry's calling her the future of ethical development. She's getting a lot of attention. Marcus turned back to the window, jaw tight. 20 years of building an empire, and some nobody with a social conscience was being called the future. Book me a ticket to that summit. You're already scheduled to attend, sir. You're receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award. Perfect. I want to see this Sophia Brennan up close. Let's find out what she's really made of. What Marcus couldn't know, was that Sophia Brennan had been studying him for far longer than 6 months. She knew his business strategies, his blind spots, his vulnerabilities. She knew him better than he'd ever known himself. Because Sophia Brennan wasn't just his competition. She was his reckoning. But to understand how he got here, we need to go back. 24 years back. To a version of Marcus Vail who didn't own penthouses or Italian suits. To a man who was hungry and ambitious and in love with a woman who believed in him more than he believed in himself. Let me introduce you to Elena Carr. 24 years earlier. Boston, Massachusetts. Marcus Vail at 25 was nothing like the polished billionaire he'd become. Back then, he was a construction project manager with cement dust under his fingernails and dreams bigger than his paycheck. He worked 70-hour weeks on development sites, learning everything he could about how buildings went from blueprints to reality. He lived in a one-bedroom apartment with furniture from thrift stores and ambitions from business magazines he read during lunch breaks. That's where he met Elena. She was 23, teaching second grade at an underfunded public school in South Boston. Elena had the kind of warmth that made everyone around her feel seen. Kids loved her. Parents trusted her. Even the jaded teachers in the break room softened when she walked in. She wore cardigans with pockets full of crayons. She knew every student's birthday. She spent her own money on classroom supplies because the school budget was a joke. Marcus met her at a community meeting about a proposed development project threatening to demolish the neighborhood park. He was there representing the construction company. She was there representing the families who'd lose the only green space their kids had. They argued for 90 minutes. He cited economic growth and tax revenue. She cited childhood memories and community need. Neither won the debate, but by the end of it, Marcus knew he wanted to see her again. He found her after the meeting. "You're passionate about that park. You're passionate about destroying it," she shot back, but she was smiling. "I'm passionate about building things. Sometimes you have to tear down to build up." And sometimes what's already there is worth more than what you want to replace it with. Marcus grinned. Let me buy you coffee, and we can argue about it more. Elena considered this. Only if you actually listen instead of waiting for your turn to talk. Deal. That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into walks through the park Marcus's company had ultimately decided not to demolish, partly because Elena had rallied the community, partly because Marcus had quietly suggested alternative sites to his bosses. Within 6 months, they were inseparable. Within a year, they were married at a tiny courthouse ceremony with 2 witnesses and dreams they couldn't afford yet. Elena believed in Marcus in a way no one ever had. His own parents had written him off as average. His bosses saw him as competent but unremarkable. But Elena saw something else. Potential. Drive. The kind of hunger that changes trajectories. You're going to build something incredible someday, she told him one night in their cramped apartment, her head on his chest. We're going to build something incredible, he corrected. She smiled. We already are. Their life wasn't easy. Marcus worked brutal hours. Elena brought homeschool stress and a teacher's salary that barely covered groceries. They ate pasta 4 nights a week. Their furniture didn't match. Their car made alarming noises. But they were happy. They had plans. Save enough for Marcus to start his own small contracting business. Eventually buy a house with a backyard. Maybe kids someday when they were more stable. Someday came sooner than planned. Elena sat on the bathroom floor one Tuesday morning, staring at 2 pink lines on a plastic stick. Her hands shook, not from fear exactly, from the weight of suddenly real responsibility. She was pregnant. They'd been married 14 months. Their combined savings was $4,000. Marcus was still working for someone else, still dreaming of independence, but years away from achieving it. That evening, Elena waited until after dinner to tell him. Marcus was reviewing blueprints at their kitchen table, the same table they'd found on the sidewalk with a free sign. Marcus, I need to tell you something. He looked up, saw her face, immediately knew it was serious. What's wrong? She sat down across from him, took his hands. I'm pregnant. The blueprints forgotten, Marcus stared at her. Silent. Processing. Say something, Elena whispered. How far along? About 6 weeks. I wasn't sure, so I waited to test until I was certain. More silence. Elena watched his face carefully. She saw love there, but she also saw fear. The kind of fear that comes when dreams collide with reality. We'll figure it out, she said, squeezing his hands. People do this with less than we have. We'll be okay. Marcus nodded slowly. Yeah, of course. We'll figure it out. But even as he said it, Elena noticed he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. That should have been her first warning. 3 days later, everything changed. Marcus came home at 11 p.m. with news that made Elena's heart sink the moment she saw his face. Excited. Energized. The way he looked when opportunity knocked. Daniel Rothschild wants to meet with me. Elena knew that name. Everyone in Boston real estate knew that name. Daniel Rothschild was a billionaire developer who'd built half of downtown. He was the kind of man whose handshake could change lives. Why does he want to meet with you? Marcus paced their tiny living room. He's expanding into European markets. London, Paris, Berlin. He needs someone who understands construction from the ground up, someone hungry, someone willing to dedicate everything to building his vision. That's amazing, Marcus. When's the meeting? He stopped pacing. He wants me to fly to London next week. If it goes well, the job starts immediately. 3-year contract. Project manager for his entire European expansion. Elena's excitement dimmed. 3 years? In Europe? It's the opportunity of a lifetime, Elena. The salary alone is 4 times what I make now. After 3 years, I'd have the experience and connections to start my own firm. Everything we've dreamed about. In 3 years, we'll have a 2-year-old child. Marcus. The room went quiet. Marcus sat down heavily. I know. That's why I haven't said yes yet. Elena moved to sit beside him. What are you thinking? I'm thinking this is the break I've been waiting for my entire life. I'm thinking opportunities like this don't come twice. I'm thinking, he stopped himself. You're thinking a baby complicates everything. He didn't deny it. Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. It doesn't have to be complicated. We could come with you. I could teach in London. People have babies in Europe all the time. Marcus shook his head. Rothschild was clear. He needs total commitment. 80, 90-hour weeks. Constant travel between project sites. It's not a life for a family. It's barely a life for a single person. So what are you saying? Marcus stood again, resumed pacing. I don't know. I'm saying I don't know. I need to think. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus thought. He met with Rothschild. He toured project sites. He reviewed contracts. And slowly, Elena watched the man she married disappear behind someone she didn't recognize. Someone who talked about return on investment and career trajectory more than he talked about their future together. The final conversation happened on a rainy Thursday night. Marcus came home late with papers in his hand. Contracts. Legal documents. Elena was folding tiny baby clothes she'd bought that afternoon. Gender-neutral yellows and greens, because it was too early to know. Marcus saw the clothes, and something in his expression cracked. Elena, we need to talk. She set down the onesie in her hands. You took the job. This is bigger than just a job. This is the foundation for everything else. 3 years of sacrifice now means decades of security later. 3 years of you gone, Marcus. 3 years of raising our child alone. You wouldn't be alone. You'd have your family, your friends. And I'd send money. Enough that you wouldn't have to work if you didn't want to. Elena stood slowly. You think this is about money? I think this is about building a future. We already have a future. Right here. You, me, and the baby. Marcus's voice rose to match hers. A future eating pasta every night in an apartment where the heat barely works? A future where our kid wears hand-me-downs and we can't afford decent schools? That's not the future I want. So you'd rather have no future with us at all? The question hung there. Marcus set the contracts on the table. Among them, Elena noticed other papers. Divorce documents. Her blood went cold. What is that? I can't do this, Elena. His voice cracked. I can't be the father this child needs. Not now. Not when I'm trying to build something. It wouldn't be fair to any of us. Fair. Elena's voice shook. You think abandoning your family is fair? I think staying and resenting every missed opportunity would be worse. I think growing bitter watching everyone else succeed while I'm stuck would poison everything. At least this way. At least this way you get everything you want and I get nothing. Marcus flinched. That's not. I'll provide financially. Child support. Whatever you need. Elena picked up the divorce papers with trembling hands. You already had these drawn up. You made this decision without me. Because I knew you'd try to convince me to stay. And I knew I'd be tempted. And I knew that 5 years from now, we'd both regret it. Tears streamed down Elena's face. I'd regret having you here, being a family. You'd regret watching me fail. Watching me become someone small and resentful because I gave up the only shot I had at being someone. You are someone, Marcus. You're my husband. You're about to be a father. I can't be both. Not now. Not with this opportunity. Elena looked at the man she'd believed in, fought for, loved with everything she had. In that moment, she barely recognized him. If you leave, don't come back. Don't send checks to ease your guilt. Don't show up years later when it's convenient. If you walk out that door, you're choosing to be a stranger. Marcus's eyes were wet, but his jaw was set. I'm sorry, Elena. I really am. No, you're not. If you were sorry, you'd stay. He picked up the contracts. The job offer that mattered more than vows, more than love, more than the child growing inside the woman who believed in him when no one else did. I'll have my lawyer send over the papers. They're already here, Marcus. You thought of everything except what actually mattered. He walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back one last time. For what it's worth, I do love you. Elena's voice was hollow. Love isn't worth much if you can't stay for it. Marcus Vale walked out that night and didn't look back. 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. 6 weeks after that, he was on a plane to London, chasing an empire. Behind him, Elena Carr sat in their empty apartment, one hand on her growing belly, trying to figure out how to explain to a child someday that their father chose success over them before they were even born. If you're watching this and thinking about the choices we make, about what we sacrifice in the name of ambition, hit that subscribe button. because this story is just beginning, and where it goes next will challenge everything you think you know about success and redemption. Drop a comment right now and tell me, have you ever watched someone choose their career over everything else? How did that turn out? I'm reading every single comment. The thing about running from your past is that eventually you run so far you forget what you were running from. Marcus told himself the guilt would fade. That time and success would justify the choice. That someday he'd look back and see he'd made the right decision. 24 years is a long time to lie to yourself. In London, Marcus threw himself into work with the desperation of a man trying to outrun his conscience. 90-hour weeks became his normal. He lived in hotels and spent weekends touring construction sites. He learned European building codes and development regulations. He networked with politicians and investors. And he excelled. Daniel Rothschild's European expansion became legendary in real estate circles. Projects in London, Paris, Berlin, Amsterdam. Marcus managed them all. His reputation grew. By year 2, headhunters were calling with offers. By year 3, Marcus had saved enough and learned enough to start his own venture. He never returned to Boston. Instead, he moved to Seattle, as far from his old life as he could get while staying in America, and launched Vail Industries with Rothschild's blessing and backing. The company grew fast. Marcus had a gift for identifying undervalued properties and transforming them into premium developments. Shopping centers, office parks, mixed-use complexes. Each success funded the next, bigger project. Within 5 years, he was a millionaire. Within 10, he'd cracked his first 100 million. By 15 years, Vail Industries was a household name in Pacific Northwest real estate. Forbes profiled him. Business schools used his strategies as case studies. Charities courted his donations. Marcus dated occasionally. Beautiful women who looked good at galas and didn't ask complicated questions. None of it stuck. He told himself he was married to his work, that he didn't have time for relationships. The truth was simpler and sadder. Every woman he met, he compared to Elena, to the warmth he'd walked away from, to the belief she'd had in him that he'd repaid with abandonment. None of them measured up. So he stayed alone in increasingly expensive houses, building an empire that impressed everyone except the man in the mirror. Marcus convinced himself he'd moved on. He never asked about Elena, never searched her name online, never wondered about the child. It was easier that way. Easier to pretend that chapter of his life had never happened than to confront what he'd done. But the universe has a way of making you confront exactly what you're running from. And Marcus's reckoning was already in motion. He just didn't know it yet. While Marcus built his empire in Seattle, Elena built something far more valuable in a modest neighborhood outside Portland, Oregon. She built a life, a real one, the kind that doesn't make magazine covers but matters infinitely more. After Marcus left, Elena moved back to her hometown. Her parents helped as much as they could, but they were already stretched thin financially. Her mother watched the baby when Elena returned to teaching. Her father fixed things around the small house Elena rented that always seemed to be breaking. Sophia Brennan was born on a rainy March morning. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, dark hair like her mother, eyes that would eventually turn the same shade of determined brown that Marcus had. Elena held her daughter in the hospital, alone except for her mother, and made a promise. Sophia would never feel abandoned, never feel like she wasn't enough, never question whether she was loved. It wasn't easy. Teaching salary plus occasional tutoring barely covered rent and groceries. Elena shopped at thrift stores and clipped coupons. She learned to fix her own car from YouTube videos. She said no to anything that wasn't essential. But Sophia always had what she needed. Clean clothes, even if they were secondhand. Nutritious meals, even if Elena skipped lunch to afford them. Books from the library. A mother who showed up to every school event, every recital, every moment that mattered. As Sophia got older, she asked the question Elena dreaded. Why don't I have a daddy? Elena was folding laundry when 6-year-old Sophia asked. She paused, choosing her words carefully. You do have a father, sweetheart. He just isn't part of our lives. Why not? Because he made different choices. He chose a different path. Did he not want me? Elena set down the shirt she was folding and knelt to Sophia's level. Listen to me carefully. What he wanted or didn't want has nothing to do with who you are. You are smart and kind and wonderful, and those things are true no matter what anyone else chooses. Do you understand? Sophia nodded, but Elena saw the confusion in her eyes, the hurt. Over the years, the question came back in different forms. Do you think he ever thinks about me? Would he like me if he met me? Is it my fault he left? Each time, Elena answered with patience and honesty. I don't know if he thinks about you, but I think about you constantly. He would see how incredible you are, just like I do. It is absolutely not your fault. His choice had nothing to do with you. And every time, Elena added the same thing. He made his choices, Sophia. Someday, you'll make better ones. Those words became Sophia's foundation. She watched her mother work 2 jobs and never complain. Watched her fix broken things and make magic with limited resources. Watched her give and give and give without asking for anything in return. Sophia learned that strength wasn't loud, that success wasn't measured in dollars, that the most important thing you could build wasn't a building at all. It was character. In school, Sophia excelled, top of her class every year. Not because she was naturally brilliant, though she was bright, but because she worked harder than everyone else. She'd seen her mother's sacrifices. She wasn't about to waste them. Scholarships carried her through high school. More scholarships got her into college. She studied finance and economics, fascinated by how money moved and who controlled it. During her sophomore year, she attended a lecture about real estate development and wealth inequality. The professor showed how high-end developments displaced low-income families, how investors prioritized profit over people, how entire communities were destroyed in the name of progress. Something clicked. Sophia realized real estate wasn't just about buildings. It was about power, about who got housed and who got pushed out, about families like hers, struggling in the margins while developers got rich. She added a law degree to her plans. If she was going to change the system, she needed to understand it completely. Stanford for her MBA, Columbia for law school. Full scholarships for both because Sophia Brennan didn't just work hard, she worked smart. By the time she graduated, she had a plan. Build a real estate company that prioritized people over profits, that developed mixed-income housing, that proved you could do good and still succeed. Her mother's small inheritance, $20,000 from Elena's father when he passed, became seed money. Sophia launched Beacon Housing Solutions at 27 with a mission statement that made traditional developers laugh. We measure success by families housed, not profits generated. Let them laugh, Sophia thought. They won't be laughing for long. The first 3 years were brutal. Sophia worked 100-hour weeks. She learned zoning laws and construction codes. She built relationships with contractors who believed in the mission. She courted investors who cared about impact as much as returns. Slowly, Beacon grew. One small development, then another. Mixed-income communities where teachers and nurses could live alongside tech workers, where single mothers like Elena could afford safe housing. Every property Beacon developed, Sophia dedicated to her mother. Not publicly, but in her heart. Every family housed was a tribute to the woman who'd housed her with so little. And then, about 4 years into building Beacon, Sophia was researching major developers in the Pacific Northwest for a competitive analysis. That's when she saw his face. Marcos Valle, featured in a Business Weekly article about Seattle's most influential developers. She almost scrolled past, but something made her stop. She looked closer at the photo, at his eyes. She'd seen those eyes before, in the mirror every morning. Her hand started shaking as she read his biography. Age 49, never married, no children listed, built Vail Industries from nothing into a billion-dollar empire. She searched deeper, found earlier articles, traced his history back. Boston, a brief marriage in his mid-20s, divorced before moving to London. The timeline aligned perfectly. Sophia sat in her small apartment office until 3 in the morning, reading everything she could find about Marcus Vail. By sunrise, she knew. Her greatest competitor in the real estate world, the man whose company represented everything she was fighting against, the billionaire who built luxury developments while families struggled to afford rent. That was her father, the man who'd abandoned her before she was born. The man who chose an empire over family. The man who had no idea she existed. Sophia called her mother at 6 a.m. Mom, I need to know something. My father. What was his name? Elena's silence spoke volumes. Sophia, why are you asking this now? Please, Mom. I need to know. A long pause. Then, quietly, Marcus Vale. Sophia closed her eyes. Did you know what he became? I've known for years. I watched him build everything while we had nothing. I've seen his face on magazines. I've read about his success. Elena's voice was steady but sad. I never told you because I didn't want a shadow in your life. I wanted you to become who you were meant to be, not who you were in relation to him. I think I've been competing with him without knowing it. What do you mean? Sophia explained. Beacon housing, the developments, the territories, the fact that for 6 months, she'd been systematically outbidding Vale Industries. Elena was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But Mom, he doesn't know I exist. He has no idea his daughter has been taking everything from him. And when he finds out, Sophia looked at the business plan on her screen, at the projects in development, at the empire she was building, not for profit, but for purpose. When he finds out, he'll realize that the child he threw away became the one person capable of beating him at his own game. Sophia didn't tell Marcus who she was. Not yet. That would have been too easy, too quick, too merciful for a man who'd spent 24 years pretending she didn't exist. Instead, she did something far more strategic. She studied him. Every deal Vale Industries had ever made. Every property they'd acquired. Every pattern in Marcus's investment strategy. She analyzed his strengths, his blind spots, his predictable moves. Marcus Vale was brilliant at identifying undervalued properties in emerging neighborhoods. He'd buy low, develop high-end, and sell for massive returns. His weakness? He always went for maximum profit. Always luxury. Always premium pricing. It made him rich. It also made him predictable. Sophia started targeting the same properties, but with a different endgame. Where Marcus saw luxury condos, Sophia saw mixed-income housing. Where he planned high-end retail, she planned community centers and affordable commercial space. And because her profit margins were smaller, because she didn't need to maximize every dollar, she could outbid him and still make the numbers work. Over 6 months, Beacon Housing beat Vale Industries on 7 major acquisitions. 7 properties that would have added another $100 million to Marcus's empire. Gone. Marcus's board started asking uncomfortable questions. His investors wanted explanations. The man who never lost was suddenly losing repeatedly to the same competitor. Sophia watched it all unfold from her modest office in Portland. No pentose, no marble counters, just a renovated warehouse space with exposed brick and second-hand furniture. Her team was small, 12 employees, all true believers in the mission. They worked for less money than they could make elsewhere because they believed in what Beacon represented. Her CFO, James Park, a Korean-American numbers genius who'd left a 6-figure Wall Street job to join her, knocked on her office door one afternoon. We got another one. Sophia looked up from her laptop. Portland waterfront? James grinned. Signed the papers an hour ago. Vale Industries bid $19 million. We came in at 19.5. How are the margins? Tight, but workable. If we do 60% market rate and 40% subsidized like planned, we'll break even in year 7 and profit after that. Sophia leaned back in her chair. That property was supposed to be Marcus Vale's signature development. Luxury condos with yacht slips. Now it's going to be housing for working families with a community dock for fishing. James sat down. Sophia, can I ask you something? Always. Why Vale Industries? There are a dozen major developers in the Pacific Northwest, but you're specifically targeting his deals. It's personal, isn't it? Sophia considered how much to tell him. James had been with her from the beginning. He believed in Beacon when it was just a wild idea and $20,000. He's my father. James blinked. I'm sorry, what? Marcus Vale. He got my mother pregnant 24 years ago and walked away before I was born. Chose his career over his family. Built an empire while my mom worked 2 jobs to keep us fed. Does he know that I exist? No. That I'm his competition? Yes. That his competition is his daughter? Not yet. James processed this. So this is revenge. No. Sophia shook her head. Revenge will be trying to destroy him, just for destruction's sake. This is justice. I'm beating him by being better than him. By proving that success doesn't require abandoning your values or your family. Every property I take from him houses families he would have displaced. That's not revenge. That's correction. When are you going to tell him? Sophia smiled. Small. Cold. When it hurts the most. 2 weeks later, Sophia got the call that would force the revelation sooner than she'd planned. The National Real Estate Summit. The industry's biggest annual event. 3,000 developers, investors, and policymakers gathering in San Francisco. Maria Chun, the summit organizer, was on the line. Sophia, I'll get straight to it. We want you for keynote. Sophia nearly dropped her phone. Keynote? Maria, I've been in business 3 years. And in 3 years, you've revolutionized affordable housing development. You're proving that ethical real estate can be profitable. You're the story everyone's talking about. We need you on that stage. Who else is speaking? The usual suspects. Panel discussions on market trends, technology and development, sustainable building. Oh, and Marcus Vail is receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award. Sophia's heart stopped. Marcus Vail will be there. He'll be there. Is that a problem? A problem? No. It was perfect. No problem at all. I'll do it. After she hung up, Sophia sat very still. The summit was in 3 weeks. 3 weeks until she stood on stage in front of the entire industry. 3 weeks until Marcus Vail sat in an audience listening to the daughter he didn't know existed. 3 weeks to prepare for the moment that would change everything. She called her mother that evening. Mom, I'm speaking at the National Real Estate Summit. Elena's pride was audible. Sophia, that's incredible. Marcus will be there. He's getting an award. Silence. I'm going to meet him, Mom. Not as his daughter. Not yet. But he's going to see me. Hear me speak. Maybe, if I'm lucky, he'll start to realize that someone is beating him for a reason. Are you ready for this? Sophia looked around her small apartment. At the framed photo of her and Elena at her law school graduation. At the vision board covered with properties Beacon had developed. At the life she'd built without a father, because of a mother who'd been enough. I've been ready my whole life. The National Real Estate Summit took over the San Francisco Moscone Center like a corporate invasion. Thousands of developers in expensive suits. Networking breakfasts and cocktail hours. Deal making in hallways and bathrooms. Sophia arrived wearing a navy suit she'd bought specifically for this. Professional. Confident. She'd pulled her dark hair back in a sleek bun. Minimal makeup. She wanted to look capable, not performative. Registration gave her a speaker badge and a schedule. Her keynote was day 2. 10 a.m. Prime slot. Right after the opening ceremonies and before the lunch break when attention spans flagged. Marcus's Lifetime Achievement Award was scheduled for the evening gala on day 2. Perfect timing. She'd speak in the morning. Make her mark. Then watch him receive accolades for a career built on abandoned responsibilities. The poetry wasn't lost on her. Day 1 was networking. Sophia moved through the crowds, shaking hands, making connections. Investors who'd heard about Beacon. Developers curious about her model. Politicians interested in affordable housing solutions. And then, across the main exhibition hall, she saw him. Marcus Vail in person for the first time in her life. He was taller than she'd imagined from photos. 49 years old, but aging well, the way rich men do with personal trainers and expensive haircuts. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He was surrounded by people, laughing at something someone said, completely at ease in his element. Sophia watched from a distance, studied him, looking for anything familiar, any piece of herself reflected back. She had his eyes, the same dark brown, the same intensity. His hands moved when he talked, emphatic gestures. She did that too. She'd always thought it came from her mother, but maybe not. The shape of his jaw, his height, the way he tilted his head slightly when listening. Pieces of him in her that she'd never known came from him. It felt strange, violating almost, like he'd contributed to who she was without permission, without presence, without earning the right. Someone bumped into Sophia, breaking her focus. She turned away before Marcus could notice her staring. Tomorrow. Tomorrow he'd see her, hear her, and maybe, just maybe, start to feel the first uncomfortable questions. That evening, Sophia had dinner with James and two other Beacon team members who'd come for the summit. They ate at a small Italian place, far from the convention center, away from the industry crowds. "You seem distracted," James said, twirling pasta on his fork. "Just thinking about tomorrow. Nervous about the keynote?" "No, I know what I'm going to say. I'm just curious how it's going to land." Her operations director, Rachel Kim, a fierce woman in her 40s who'd left a corporate development job to join Beacon's mission, leaned forward. "Sophia, you're about to tell 3,000 developers that they're doing it wrong. That profit isn't the only measure of success. In a room full of people who've built careers on maximizing profit, it's going to land like a bomb." Sophia smiled. "Good. That's exactly what I'm hoping for." She went back to her hotel room early, reviewed her speech one final time. She'd written and rewritten it a dozen times, balancing inspiration with challenge, hope with accountability. The core message was simple. Real estate development shaped communities. Developers had a responsibility beyond their investors. Housing was a human right, not just a commodity, and it was possible to build ethically and still succeed. She knew the industry would resist. Change always met resistance. But she also knew that some people in that audience tomorrow were tired of the old model. Tired of displacing families for profit. Tired of building monuments to wealth, while teachers and nurses couldn't afford to live in the cities they served. Those people would hear her message and feel permission to do better. And Marcus Vail would hear it and maybe, for the first time in 24 years, feel the faintest whisper of what he'd lost. Sophia slept well that night. The sleep of someone with nothing to lose and everything to prove. The next morning, the main auditorium filled early. 3,000 seats and standing room only. Word had spread about the keynote speaker, the young CEO challenging conventional wisdom. Behind the stage, Sophia waited with the event organizers. She could hear the crowd murmuring, could feel the energy. Maria Chun did the introduction. "Our next speaker has accomplished in 3 years what most developers don't achieve in 20. She's built a company that proves profit and purpose aren't mutually exclusive. She's housing families, revitalizing communities, and showing us all what ethical development looks like. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Beacon Housing Solutions, Sophia Brennan." Applause erupted as Sophia walked onto the stage. The lights made it hard to see individual faces in the audience, but she knew Marcus was out there somewhere. Watching, listening, still completely unaware. She reached the podium, took a breath, and began. "I want to start with a question. What do you think about when you see an empty lot?" She paused, letting the question sit. "Most of you see potential revenue. Square footage times price per unit. Profit margins and investor returns. And there's nothing wrong with that. Profit sustains business. I understand that." Another pause. "But I see something different. I see families. I see a single mother working 2 jobs who needs a safe place to raise her kids. I see teachers and nurses and firefighters who serve our communities but can't afford to live in them. I see seniors on fixed incomes and young people starting out, and everyone in between who needs housing that doesn't consume their entire paycheck." The audience was quiet now, listening. We measure success by buildings built and dollars earned. But what if we measured it differently? What if we asked, how many families did we house? How many communities did we strengthen? How many people's lives improved because of what we built? She clicked her first slide, a photo of Beacon's first development. Modest, mixed-income housing in a Portland neighborhood. This was Beacon's first project. 40 units, 24 market rate, 16 subsidized for low-income families. Traditional developers told me the numbers wouldn't work, that I'd lose money, that affordable housing wasn't sustainable. Next slide, financial breakdown showing the development's performance. Year 5, we're profitable. Occupancy rate 98%. Community satisfaction scores off the charts. We proved it works. Next slide, 3 more developments. We've replicated this model 6 times now. Every project houses families who would otherwise be priced out. Every project strengthens communities instead of displacing them. Every project proves that we can do better. Sophia looked out at the sea of faces. Some nodding, some skeptical, some carefully neutral. I'm not saying profit is evil. I'm saying it's not the only thing that matters. I'm saying we have a choice about what kind of developers we want to be. Do we want to be remembered for the buildings we built or the lives we changed? For the wealth we accumulated or the communities we served? She clicked to a slide showing a family, real tenants from a Beacon property, standing in front of their home. This is the Martinez family. Maria works as a teacher's aide. Her husband drives a bus. They have 3 kids. Before Beacon, they were living in a 1-bedroom apartment in an unsafe neighborhood because it was all they could afford. Now, they're in a 3-bedroom unit in a community with a playground and a community center. Their kids walk to a good school. They're building stability. Sophia's voice strengthened. That's success. Real success. Not a magazine cover. Not a luxury brand. Success that matters to actual human beings. The applause started small, but built. Not everyone, but enough. Sophia continued for 20 more minutes, sharing data that proved ethical development worked, sharing stories that proved it mattered, challenging the audience to think bigger than their next quarterly report. She ended with a line she'd practiced 100 times. We don't measure success by skyscrapers. We measure it by families who never have to wonder where they'll sleep. And if that's not success worth building, I don't know what is. The applause was thunderous. Standing ovation from at least half the room. The other half clapped politely, unconvinced but respectful. Sophia left the stage feeling electric. She'd done it. She'd challenged the industry on its biggest stage, and they'd listened. Backstage, Maria hugged her. That was incredible. You just changed the conversation. Other speakers waiting for their sessions came up to shake her hand, to exchange cards, to ask about partnering. But the person Sophia most wanted to reach hadn't approached. Because Marcus Vail had sat in the back of that auditorium, listening to a 30-year-old woman challenge everything he'd built his career on, and felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Doubt. Marcus left the keynote early, before the standing ovation finished. He went back to his hotel room and poured a scotch even though it was only 11 a.m. Sophia Brennan's words kept echoing. What do you think about when you see an empty lot? Revenue. That's what he thought about. Always had. We measure success by families who never have to wonder where they'll sleep. When had Marcus last thought about the families his developments displaced? The people priced out when he built luxury where affordability used to be? Never. He'd literally never thought about it. He pulled up Beacon Housing Solutions on his laptop, studied their portfolio more carefully than his team's competitive analysis had. Every development prioritized community, mixed income, shared spaces, reasonable rents, and somehow, impossibly, the numbers worked. Sophia Brennan was proving that everything Marcus believed about real estate, about success, about the necessity of choosing profit over people, might be wrong. Or worse, might be a choice he'd made, but didn't have to. He thought about Elena, about the choice he'd made 24 years ago. Profit over family, career over responsibility. He told himself it was necessary, that he couldn't build an empire and raise a child. That sacrifice was required for success. But what if that was just a story he'd told himself to justify what he wanted to do anyway? What if he could have built something meaningful without abandoning everything else? Marcus finished his scotch and poured another. Tonight, he'd receive a Lifetime Achievement Award for building Vail Industries. Suddenly, the achievement felt hollow. The evening gala was black tie. 1,000 industry leaders in their finest, celebrating excellence in real estate development. Sophia almost didn't attend. She delivered her keynote, made her impact. She could have flown home, but she wanted to see this. Wanted to watch Marcus receive applause for a lifetime of choices. Wanted to feel the full weight of irony. She wore a simple black dress, elegant but understated. She wasn't here to be noticed. She sat at a table near the back with James and Rachel. They ate the rubber chicken dinner and made small talk with the other developers at their table. And then the awards began. Several categories: innovation in sustainable building, excellence in urban planning, community impact. Finally, the main event. The MC, a prominent real estate journalist, took the microphone. Our final award tonight honors a career that has shaped the Pacific Northwest landscape. A developer who turned vision into reality, who built an empire from nothing, who exemplifies excellence in our industry. Please join me in celebrating this year's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, Marcus Vale. The room erupted in applause. Marcus walked to the stage, waving, smiling the practiced smile of someone used to accolades. Sophia watched, her hands in her lap, her face neutral. Marcus reached the podium and accepted the Crystal Award. He waited for the applause to die down before speaking. Thank you. This is truly an honor. When I started in this industry 25 years ago, I had nothing but ambition and a willingness to work harder than anyone else. Sophia's jaw tightened. I've been fortunate to build Vale Industries into what it is today, to create jobs, to transform communities, to contribute to the economic growth of the regions we serve. Transform communities. That was one way to say it. Displace low-income families for luxury developments was another. Success in real estate requires sacrifice, long hours, difficult decisions, unwavering focus on the goal. Sacrifice. Sophia almost laughed. She knew exactly what he'd sacrificed. Marcus continued, talking about his proudest projects, his vision for the future, his gratitude to his team, standard speech, rehearsed humility, careful not to sound too proud while clearly being very proud. But then something shifted. Marcus paused, looked out at the audience. When he spoke again, his voice had changed slightly. Less rehearsed, more genuine. I heard Sophia Brennan's keynote this morning. The room went quiet. This wasn't in the script. She asked what we think about when we see an empty lot. She challenged us to measure success differently, to think about families, not just finances. Sophia sat up straighter. I'll be honest. My first reaction was defensive. I've spent my career maximizing value, building premium developments, delivering returns to investors. That's how I define success. He looked down at the award in his hands. But listening to her, I wondered, what if I've been measuring wrong this whole time? What if the buildings I'm most proud of displaced the people who needed stability most? What if success, real success, looks different than I thought? People were shifting in their seats. This wasn't a normal acceptance speech. I don't have answers tonight, but I have questions. And maybe that's what this industry needs more of. Questions. Accountability. A willingness to consider that just because we can profit doesn't mean we should, at least not at any cost. Marcus looked directly at the back of the room. He couldn't see Sophia specifically in the dim lighting, but she felt the weight of his gaze. So thank you for this award. I'm honored, but I'm also challenged. And I think that's good. We should all be challenged to do better, to be better, to build things that matter beyond our bank accounts. He left the stage to confused applause. Half the room inspired, half uncomfortable. Sophia sat very still. That wasn't what she'd expected. After the gala ended, Sophia walked through the hotel lobby, heading for the elevator. Ms. Brennan. She turned. Marcus Vale stood 10 feet away, still in his tuxedo, award in hand, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Mr. Vale. Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. Your keynote this morning was remarkable. Thank you. I meant what I said in my speech. You challenged me, made me reconsider things I'd taken for granted. Sophia nodded slowly. That was the goal. Marcus stepped closer. Can I buy you a drink? I'd love to hear more about Beacon's model. How you make the numbers work. How you... No. He stopped. No. I'm not interested in drinks or networking or sharing my business model with my competition. I'm not trying to compete with you. I'm trying to learn from you. Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, at the face she'd inherited pieces of, at the man who'd shaped her existence by his absence. You've been competing with me for 6 months, Mr. Vale. Every property I've acquired, you bid against. Every development I've planned, your team tried to block. Don't pretend now that you want to be colleagues. Marcus frowned. You're right. We have competed, but maybe that can change. Maybe there's a way to work together instead of against each other. I don't think so. Why not? If we both want to do good, We don't both want to do good, Mr. Vale. I want to do good. You want to feel better about doing well. There's a difference. His face hardened slightly. That's not fair. You heard my speech. I heard a guilty man trying to ease his conscience without actually changing his business model. Words are easy. Action is hard. When Vale Industries starts prioritizing families over profit margins, we can talk. She turned to leave. Wait. Sophia stopped, but didn't turn around. Why do I get the feeling this is personal for you? She looked back over her shoulder. Because everything in business is personal, Mr. Vale. We just pretend it isn't to make difficult decisions easier. She walked away, leaving Marcus standing in the hotel lobby, holding his Lifetime Achievement Award, feeling more unsettled than he'd felt in 20 years. He didn't know why Sophia Brennan seemed to dislike him so intensely, but he was about to find out, because the universe was done letting Marcus run from his past. The next morning, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the conversation, about Sophia's cold dismissal, about the way she'd looked at him like he was something distasteful. He'd been admired, envied, respected, feared, but Sophia Brennan looked at him with something closer to contempt. It bothered him more than it should. Back in Seattle, he called his executive team into the conference room. I want a complete file on Sophia Brennan and Beacon Housing Solutions. Everything. Where she went to school, where she gets funding, how she's undercutting our bids. I want to know everything about her. His head of research, Amanda Torres, a sharp woman who'd been with Vale Industries for a decade, raised an eyebrow. We already have competitive analysis on Beacon. I want more than analysis. I want her background, personal history. I want to understand who she is. Sir, that seems. Just do it, Amanda. 3 days later, Amanda returned with a file thicker than a phone book. Marcus opened it in his office alone. The first pages were professional. Stanford MBA, Columbia Law, impressive credentials. Started Beacon at 27 with minimal capital. Built it through smart partnerships and innovative financing. Then the personal background. Born in Portland, Oregon. Mother, Elena Carr. Marcus's heart stopped. Father, unknown. Birth date, March 15th, 24 years ago. The file slipped from his hands. Elena K. His Elena, the woman he divorced and abandoned. The pregnancy he'd walked away from. He did the math 3 times, hoping he was wrong. He wasn't. Sophia Brennan was his daughter. The woman who'd been systematically dismantling his empire for 6 months. The woman who'd challenged his entire worldview on stage. The woman who'd looked at him with contempt in a hotel lobby. His daughter. Marcus sat at his desk until the sun set and the office emptied around him. Everything made terrible, perfect sense. The way she targeted his development specifically, her cold response to his attempt at conversation, her speech about measuring success by families, delivered to a room where he sat, being celebrated for abandoning his own. She knew. She'd known the whole time. And she'd been making him pay for it with every property she took, every deal she won, every moment she proved she was better at the game he'd spent decades mastering. Marcus pulled up photos of Sophia from the summit, studied her face, Elena's kindness in the shape of her smile, his determination in her eyes, a combination of the best parts of both of them, built entirely without him. He'd missed everything. Her first steps, her first words, her first day of school, every birthday, every achievement, every moment a father should be present for. He'd chosen an empire instead, and now that empire was being taken apart, piece by piece, by the daughter he'd thrown away. The irony was so sharp it drew blood. Marcus opened his laptop and typed an email. To Sophia.Brennan@beaconhousing.com. Subject, we need to talk. Ms. Brennan, I know who you are. Please meet me. Marcus. He stared at the draft for 30 minutes before hitting send. Then he sat in his dark office, surrounded by awards and accolades, and the evidence of a successful career, and waited for his daughter to respond. If she responded at all. Sophia saw the email at 11 p.m. She was in her apartment, reviewing financial projections for Beacon's next development, when her phone buzzed. Marcus Vale had sent her a message. I know who you are. For words that changed everything. Sophia stared at the screen. She'd wondered when this moment would come. How it would feel. Whether she'd feel vindicated or empty or something else entirely. What she felt was tired. Tired of carrying the weight of his abandonment. Tired of competing with a ghost. Tired of proving herself to a man who'd never bothered to know she existed. She closed her laptop without responding. Let him wait. He made her wait 24 years. But sleep didn't come easy that night. Sophia lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the man who'd contributed half her DNA, but none of her upbringing. What did he want? Forgiveness? Reconciliation? To ease his conscience, now that the secret was out? She didn't owe him anything. And yet, part of her, the part that used to ask her mother why she didn't have a daddy, wanted to hear what he had to say, wanted to look him in the eye and ask the questions that had lived in her chest for 2 decades. Why wasn't I enough to make you stay? Did you ever think about me? Did you ever regret it? At 3 a.m., Sophia got up and made tea. Chamomile that her mother always said could calm anything. She pulled out her phone and typed a response. Mr. Vale, I've known who you were long before you knew who I was. If you want to talk, come to Portland. Beacon Housing Solutions, 412 Morrison Street. Friday, 2 p.m. Don't be late. Sophia. She hit send before she could overthink it. Then she called her mother. Elena answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. Sophia? It's 3 in the morning. He knows. Silence. Then, quietly, how did he find out? He had someone dig into my background. Got my full history. He emailed me tonight. What did he say? That he knows who I am. That he wants to talk. Elena was quiet for a long moment. What did you say? I told him to come to Portland. Friday. Are you ready for this, baby? Sophia looked around her small apartment. At the life she'd built. The woman she'd become. All of it without Marcus Vale. I don't know if I'm ready. But it's happening anyway. Do you want me there? No. This is something I need to do alone. But Mom. Yes. Thank you. For everything. For raising me. For never making me feel like I was missing something because he wasn't there. For being enough. Elena's voice cracked. You were always enough, Sophia. His leaving had nothing to do with you and everything to do with him. I know, but I needed to say it anyway. After they hung up, Sophia finally slept. When she woke, she had another email from Marcus. I'll be there. Friday couldn't come fast enough and came too quickly at the same time. Marcus flew to Portland Thursday night. Got a hotel room downtown. Barely slept. He'd rehearsed what he wanted to say 100 times. Apologies. Explanations. Regrets. Everything sounded hollow. How do you apologize for missing someone's entire childhood? For choosing money over family? For pretending they didn't exist because it was easier than facing what you'd done? Marcus had negotiated billion-dollar deals, had convinced skeptical investors and hostile boards, had talked his way into and out of impossible situations. But this conversation terrified him more than anything he'd faced in 25 years of business. Friday afternoon, he stood outside Beacon Housing Solutions. It wasn't what he expected. No glass tower, no marble lobby, just a renovated brick warehouse in a revitalized neighborhood. The kind of neighborhood Beacon probably helped revitalize. The sign out front was simple. Beacon Housing Solutions. Building communities, changing lives. Marcus checked his watch. 1:58 p.m. He went inside. The reception area was modest but warm. Photographs covered the walls. Families in front of Beacon properties. Community events. Ribbon cuttings. Every photo showed people, not buildings. A young receptionist looked up. Can I help you? Marcus Vale. I have a 2 o'clock with Sophia Brennan. The receptionist's expression flickered. Recognition. She clearly knew who he was. What he was. One moment. She made a call. Spoke quietly. Hung up. Ms. Brennan will see you now. 3rd floor. Her office is at the end of the hall. Marcus took the elevator up. His hands were shaking slightly. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been nervous. The 3rd floor was open concept. Employees at desks working. A small kitchen area. A conference room with glass walls where a team meeting was happening. Everyone looked up as he walked past. They knew who he was too. Sophia's office was at the end of the hall. Door open. She sat behind a simple wooden desk, typing on a laptop. She didn't look up when he reached the doorway. Come in. Close the door. Marcus stepped inside and shut the door behind him. Sophia finished whatever she was typing. Save the document. Only then did she look up. In person, The resemblance was undeniable. She had his eyes, his jawline. Elena's warmth had softened his sharper features, but the foundation was his. Seat. Sophia gestured to the chair across from her desk. Marcus sat. They looked at each other for a long moment. Father and daughter. Strangers who share DNA and nothing else. Sophia spoke first. You wanted to talk. So talk. Marcus cleared his throat. I don't know where to start. How about why you're here? Because you're my daughter. Because I didn't know you existed until 3 days ago. Because you didn't know because you didn't want to know. Sophia's voice was calm. Clinical. My mother was pregnant when you left. You knew that. You chose to walk away and never look back. Don't pretend this is about ignorance. You're right. I knew Elena was pregnant. I made a choice. The wrong choice. The selfish choice. Yes, the selfish choice. Sophia leaned back in her chair. Do you know what it's like growing up without a father? Watching other kids with their dads at school events, at soccer games, at father-daughter dances? Do you know how many times I asked my mom why I wasn't good enough for you to stay? Each word landed like a punch. Sophia, it had nothing to do with you. You weren't even born yet. I didn't know you. Exactly. You didn't know me. You chose not to know me. You chose your career over the possibility of me. And that choice shaped my entire life. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I can't change the past. I can't give you back what I took. But I'm here now. I want to know you now. Why? Because I'm successful? Because I'm beating you in business? Would you be here if I was nobody? If I was struggling and ordinary and not a threat to your empire? I don't know, Marcus admitted. Maybe not. Maybe I'd still be pretending you didn't exist if you hadn't forced me to see you. Sophia nodded slowly. At least you're honest. I've lied to myself for 24 years. About why I left. About whether it was necessary. About whether success justified the cost. I'm done lying. So what do you want? Forgiveness? A relationship? To ease your guilt? Marcus looked down at his hands. I don't know. Maybe all of that. Maybe just to understand who you are. What you became. Who you would have been if I'd stayed. I'll tell you who I would have been if you'd stayed. Sophia's voice was sharp. I would have had a father. I would have grown up in a house instead of a cramped apartment. My mother wouldn't have worked herself to exhaustion. I wouldn't have spent my childhood watching her sacrifice everything while you built an empire. That's who I would have been. I am sorry. Are you? Are you really? Or are you just sorry that the consequences finally caught up to you? Marcus met her eyes. Both. I'm sorry for what I did. And I'm sorry I didn't feel sorry until it affected me. That's the truth. I buried the guilt. Convinced myself you were better off without me. That Elena would remarry and you'd have a real father. That my money, my child support payments, were enough. You never sent child support. What? You never sent a dime. You disappeared completely. We had nothing from you. Not money. Not contact. Nothing. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. But I set up automatic payments. My lawyer was supposed to. I don't know what your lawyer told you, but my mother never received anything. We survived on her teacher's salary and her parents' help and her sheer determination. You contributed nothing. Marcus pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Opened his banking app. Searched transaction history going back 24 years. There were no payments. His lawyer had lied. Had probably pocketed the money or never set it up. And Marcus had never checked. Had never followed up. Had been so eager to forget that he'd trusted someone else to handle his responsibility and never verified. I thought I was at least providing financially. I thought that was something. But I wasn't even doing that. No, you weren't. Marcus set his phone down. I don't know how to make this right. You can't. That's what you're not understanding. You can't make this right. You can't give me back my childhood. You can't give my mother back the years she struggled. You can't undo 24 years of absence. It's done. Then why did you agree to meet me? Sophia was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. Sadder. Because part of me still needs to understand why. Part of me is still that little girl asking why her father didn't want her. I know intellectually that your leaving wasn't about me. But knowing something and feeling it are different. I did not want you. I wanted my career more. I wanted success and money and achievement more than I wanted responsibility. It was cowardice. Pure cowardice. What did success get you? Marcus looked around Sophia's modest office. Everything I thought I wanted. Money, power, respect, a name people recognize. Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. I thought I was. But looking at you, at what you've built, at the fact that you're successful and purposeful and making a real difference, I realize I've spent 24 years building nothing that matters. Your buildings matter. Do they? Who do they serve? Rich people who get richer? Investors who see humans as revenue streams? I built an empire that helps no one except myself. Sophia studied him. Is this remorse or self-pity? Probably both. Well, stop it. I don't need you to feel sorry for yourself. I need you to understand what you did and who you are. I'm a coward who chose ambition over family. No, you're a man who made a choice 24 years ago. That choice had consequences. Those consequences are sitting across from you right now. The question isn't what you were. It's what you're going to be moving forward. Marcus leaned forward. What do you want from me, Sophia? Tell me what you need, and I'll do it. I don't need anything from you. That's what you're not getting. I built a life without you. A good life. A meaningful life. I have a mother who sacrificed everything for me. I have a career that matters. I have purpose. I don't need you to complete me, or fix me, or rescue me. Then why am I here? Sophia stood and walked to the window, looked out at the Portland skyline. Because you're my father. I can't change that any more than you can change the past. And because as much as I want to hate you, part of me still hopes you're more than the man who walked away. Marcus stood too. I want to be. I don't know how, but I want to be. Then prove it. Not with words. Not with apologies. With action. What kind of action? Sophia turned to face him. Vail Industries has 3 major developments in progress. Luxury condos, high-end retail, premium office space. All of them displacing lower-income communities. That's standard development. It's destructive development. Those communities have nowhere to go. You're pricing out the people who've lived there for generations. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you change course. Redesign those projects. Mixed income, community spaces, affordable units. Prove that profit isn't the only thing that drives you. Marcus felt his business instincts resist. My investors will never approve that. The profit margins would. Be smaller. Not gone. Smaller. You'd still make money. Just less money. Is that so terrible? It would require convincing my entire board. Restructuring financing. Changing everything. Yes. It would require sacrifice. The kind of sacrifice you refused to make 24 years ago. The kind of sacrifice my mother made every day raising me. Can you do that? Can you sacrifice your comfort for something that matters? Marcus looked at his daughter, at the challenge in her eyes, at the test she was laying before him. He could walk away, go back to Seattle, continue building his empire the way he always had. Or he could try, actually try, to be someone different than the man who'd abandoned his family. If I do this, if I restructure those developments, will you consider letting me be part of your life? Sophia's expression hardened. Don't make this transactional. Don't do good things because you want something from me. Do it because it's right. Do it because you finally understand that success without purpose is emptiness. Do it because you want to be better than you were. I do want that. Then prove it. Marcus nodded slowly. Okay, I'll try. I can't promise my board will agree. I can't promise it'll work. But I'll try. That's all I'm asking. They stood in silence for a moment. The air between them heavy with 24 years of absence and hurt and questions. Finally, Marcus spoke. Can I ask you something? Why real estate? Of all the careers you could have chosen, why this one? Sophia smiled slightly. Sadly, because housing matters. Because watching my mom struggle to afford rent made me understand how fundamental stable housing is. Because I wanted to prove that the industry you dominate could be used for good instead of greed. And because, whether I wanted to admit it or not, I wanted to beat you at your own game. You're succeeding. I know. How does it feel? Sophia considered the question. Empty, sometimes. I spent years building Beacon, telling myself it was about helping families. And it is. But it's also about proving I'm better than you. That's not a healthy motivation. But you are better than me. You build things that matter. I build things that make money. You could build things that do both. That's why I'm trying to tell you. Marcus pulled out his phone. Can I have your number? Your real number, not your business line. Sophia hesitated, then recited the digits. Marcus saved it. I'm going to call you. Update you on the developments. On whether I can convince my board. On whether I can actually change. Don't call me unless you have real progress. I don't need empty updates. Understood. Marcus walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back. Sophia, I know I have no right to say this. I know I haven't earned it. But I'm proud of you. Of what you've built. Of who you are. Elena did an incredible job raising you. Sophia's eyes glistened, but her voice stayed steady. She did. She was enough. She was always enough. I know, and I'm sorry she had to be. Marcus left before his own emotions could betray him. He walked out of Beacon Housing Solutions into the Portland afternoon, feeling like he'd been taken apart and hadn't quite been put back together. His daughter hated him. No, that wasn't quite right. His daughter was disappointed by him. Somehow that was worse. Hate was passionate. Disappointment was the absence of expectation. Sophia had stopped expecting anything from him long ago. Now he had to prove she was wrong. Back in Seattle, Marcus called an emergency board meeting. 12 executives gathered in the Vail Industries conference room, confused about the sudden summons. Marcus stood at the head of the table. I'm proposing major changes to our current development projects. His CFO, Richard Moss, a numbers guy who lived for profit margins, frowned. What kind of changes? Restructuring all 3 active developments. Incorporating affordable housing units. Community spaces. Mixed income models. The room exploded. That will tank our profit margins. Investors will revolt. We have contracts, commitments, financial projections. This is business suicide. Marcus waited for the noise to die down. Are you all finished? Silence. Good. Now, let me explain why we're doing this anyway. He pulled up Sophia's keynote presentation from the summit. Played the recording. The board watched. Some skeptical. Some thoughtful. When it ended, Marcus spoke. This is Sophia Brennan. She's 30 years old, and she's been outbidding us for 6 months. She's proving that ethical development is possible. That profit and purpose aren't mutually exclusive. And she's making us look like dinosaurs. Amanda Torres, head of research, spoke up. She's also your daughter. The room went silent. Everyone stared at Marcus. Yes, he said quietly. She's my daughter. I didn't know she existed until a week ago. I walked away from her mother 24 years ago because I chose my career over family. I chose building this company over being a father. Richard looked uncomfortable. Marcus, your personal life is your business. No, it's all our business. Because the choices I made then are the same choices we're making now. Profit over people. Growth over responsibility. Success at any cost. And I'm done with that. You're letting personal guilt drive business decisions. I'm letting 24 years of regret inform better decisions. There's a difference. The head of development, Karen Wu, leaned forward. Even if we wanted to restructure, Marcus, we have investors who expect specific returns. We have contracts. We renegotiate. We show them the long-term value. Community goodwill. Positive PR. Sustainable business model. They won't care about goodwill. They care about ROI. Then we find new investors. Ones who care about more than quarterly returns. Richard pulled up financial projections. If we implement mixed income housing on the Portland project alone, we lose 30% profit margin. 30%, Marcus. And we house 50 families who otherwise couldn't afford to live there. What's that worth? In dollar terms? Nothing. Then maybe we're measuring wrong. The debate raged for 2 hours. Half the board thought Marcus had lost his mind. The other half was intrigued but cautious. Finally, Amanda spoke up. I'll support the restructure on one condition. What condition? We partner with Beacon Housing Solutions. They have expertise we don't. Instead of competing with Sophia, we learn from her. We do this right. Marcus felt his heart rate spike. She'll never agree to partner with Vail Industries. Then convince her. You wanted to change. Prove it. The board voted. 7 in favor of restructuring. 5 against. It passed. Marcus now had to do the impossible. Convince his daughter to work with him. He called Sophia that evening. She answered on the 4th ring. This better be important. The board approved restructuring all 3 developments. Mixed income. Community spaces. Everything you suggested. Silence. Then, you're serious. Completely. But there's a condition. They want to partner with Beacon. They want your expertise to do this right. Absolutely not. Sophia, I'm not partnering with Vale Industries. I'm not giving you credibility by association. I'm not. This isn't about credibility. It's about actually helping people. You said I should prove I can change. This is me changing, but I need help. I don't know how to do what you do. You have a whole team of experts. I have a team that knows how to maximize profit. You have a team that knows how to maximize impact. There's a difference. Sophia was quiet. He could hear her thinking. What exactly are you proposing? Beacon consults on the redesigns. You help us restructure to serve communities instead of displacing them. We pay your standard consulting fees. You maintain full independence. This is a business arrangement, not a reconciliation. Why would I help you succeed? Because it's not about me succeeding. It's about families getting housed. Isn't that what you said success should look like? Sophia exhaled slowly. I need to think about it. Take your time. I'll give you an answer in 48 hours. She hung up. Marcus set down his phone and looked around his penthouse. At the expensive furniture and the view he'd paid millions for and the emptiness that filled every corner. Success. This is what it looked like. And for the first time in his life, Marcus wondered if he'd been chasing the wrong thing all along. 2 days later, Sophia called back. I talked to my team. Against their better judgment, they're willing to consult on one project. Just one. If you prove you can actually implement change, we'll consider the other two. Marcus felt relief flood through him. Which project? Portland waterfront. The property you wanted for luxury condos. We'll redesign it together. Thank you. Don't thank me. Prove you deserve the chance. First meeting is Monday, 9 a.m. My office. I'll be there. And Marcus? Yes. This doesn't change anything between us. This is business. Just business. I understand. But as Marcus hung up, he hoped she was wrong. He hoped that working together, building something meaningful together, might be the beginning of something more than business. Might be the beginning of actually knowing his daughter. The first meeting was disaster. Marcus arrived at Beacon's office Monday morning with his entire development team. 6 people in expensive suits carrying leather portfolios and confident attitudes. Sophia was waiting with her own team. For people in business casual, laptops open, ready to work. The culture clash was immediate. Marcus's head of development, Karen Wu, opened with a presentation. Slides full of architectural renderings showing sleek modern buildings with premium finishes. We've maintained the luxury aesthetic while incorporating the affordable units on the lower floors. Separate entrance for the subsidized residents, of course, to preserve property values for the market rate buyers. Sophia's operations director, Rachel Kim, interrupted. Separate entrance? Standard practice for mixed income developments. It maintains distinction between. Between what? Between people who deserve a nice lobby and people who don't. Karen stiffened. Between market segments. It's basic economics. It's segregation. Rachel's voice was sharp. You're literally creating a poor door. That's not community building. That's apartheid with a charitable tax break. Marcus watched his team bristle. Watched Sophia's team lean forward, ready for battle. This was going exactly as badly as he'd feared. Let's take a step back. Marcus held up his hands. We're on the same side here. We all want this project to succeed. Sophia spoke for the first time. Do we? Because it sounds like your team wants to build luxury condos with a token gesture toward affordability. That's not what we agreed to. What did we agree to? Karen challenged. Real integration. Mixed income throughout the building. Shared amenities. Shared spaces. No economic segregation. That's financially irresponsible. Market rate buyers won't pay premium prices to share amenities with. With who, Karen? Say it. With poor people. The room went silent. Karen's face flushed. I'm being realistic about market dynamics. You're being classist about human worth. Sophia stood. If this is the level of commitment Vale Industries is bringing, we're done here. She walked toward the door. Marcus stood quickly. Sophia, wait. Please. She stopped but didn't turn around. Marcus looked at his team. At Karen's defensive posture. at the others who looked uncomfortable but silent. He made a choice. Karen, you're off this project. Karen's eyes widened. Excuse me? You heard me. This project requires a different mindset. One you clearly don't have. Marcus, I've been with Vail Industries for 12 years. And you've done excellent work building luxury developments. But this isn't that. This is something new. Something that requires actually seeing residents as people, not market segments. You're firing me over this? I'm reassigning you. You'll continue on our other projects. But not this one. Karen grabbed her portfolio and walked out without another word. The rest of Marcus's team looked shaken. Sophia slowly turned around. Anyone else want to explain why poor people don't deserve nice things? Marcus addressed his remaining team. Heads shook. Good. Then let's start over. And this time we listen. The meeting lasted 6 more hours. Sophia's team walked Marcus's team through Beacon's development philosophy. Show them previous projects. Explained how mixed income worked when done with integrity instead of tokenism. By the end, Marcus's team was asking questions instead of defending positions. Real questions. How do you finance this model? How do you maintain quality while keeping costs down? How do you create community across economic lines? Sophia's team answered everything. And slowly, gradually, the two groups started speaking the same language. When the meeting finally ended, everyone was exhausted but energized. Marcus's team filed out, already discussing how to redesign the Portland project. Sophia and Marcus were left alone in the conference room. You fired Karen. Sophia stated flatly. I reassigned her. You've worked with her for over a decade, and she's brilliant at what she does. But what she does isn't this. I need people who understand what we're trying to build. Sophia gathered her materials. That was a good start. Just a start. Your team still thinks in terms of profit first. They're trying, but the instinct is still there. This is going to be hard for them. It's hard for me too. Marcus admitted. Every time we reduce a profit margin, every time we choose impact over income, my entire business training screams that I'm making a mistake. Are you making a mistake? I don't know yet. Ask me in a year when we see if this actually works. Sophia almost smiled. Almost. Same time next week? I'll be here. Over the next 3 months, the Portland project transformed. Weekly meetings became twice weekly. Marcus started coming alone, without his team, so he could learn directly from Sophia and her people. He asked questions he'd never thought to ask before. How do you build community, not just buildings? How do you measure success beyond financial returns? How do you create spaces that serve everyone, not just those who can afford premium prices? Sophia watched him struggle with concepts that were second nature to her. Watched him fight against decades of training that said profit was the only measure that mattered. Sometimes he got it wrong. He suggested cost-cutting measures that would compromise quality for affordable units. Sophia shut him down immediately. If you're going to build affordable housing, build it well. Poor people deserve quality as much as rich people. He proposed amenity structures that subtly prioritized market-rate residents. Rachel called him out. You're still thinking in hierarchies. Stop it. He used language that treated affordable housing as charity instead of right. James corrected him. Housing isn't a privilege we grant. It's a foundation everyone deserves. But slowly Marcus learned. He started visiting Beacon's completed developments. Talked to residents. Saw what mixed-income communities looked like when done right. He met Maria Santos, a single mother living in a Beacon property. She worked as a home health aide and was studying nursing online. Her 2 kids attended the elementary school 3 blocks away. Before Beacon, we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood where I was afraid to let my kids play outside, Maria told him. Now we have 2 bedrooms, a community center with after-school programs, and neighbors who look out for each other. This place changed our lives. Marcus thought about Elena, about Sophia growing up in circumstances similar to Maria's, about the life they could have had if he'd stayed. The regret was physical, a weight in his chest that never quite left. But he was learning to carry it, learning that regret could be transformative instead of just painful. One evening, after a particularly long meeting, Sophia found Marcus still in the conference room, reviewing residential layouts. We finished an hour ago. She stood in the doorway. I know. I'm just trying to understand the unit flow. How you maximize space without compromising livability. Sophia sat down across from him. You're taking this seriously. I told you I would. People say a lot of things they don't mean. Marcus looked up. I meant it. I'm trying, Sophia. I know I don't have the instincts you do. I know my first thought is still usually wrong. But I'm trying to learn. Why? And don't say because of me. Don't make this about guilt or redemption. Why does this actually matter to you? Marcus set down the floor plans. Because I've spent 25 years building things that don't matter. Buildings that make money but don't change lives. I've been successful and empty. And I don't want to spend the next 25 years the same way. So, this is about you feeling better about yourself. Partially, yes. I won't lie about that. But it's also about finally understanding what you said at the summit. That success should be measured differently. I didn't get it then. I'm starting to get it now. Sophia studied him. You're not going to suddenly become a humanitarian, Marcus. You're still a businessman. That doesn't just change. I know, but maybe I can be both. Maybe I can build things that serve communities and still sustain a business. You do it. I do it because I was raised by a woman who showed me what actually matters. You were raised by ambition and fear of being ordinary. We have different foundations. Then teach me. Help me build a different foundation. That's not my job. I know, but you're doing it anyway. What? Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Because part of me wants to believe people can change. That you can change. That the man who walked away from his family can become someone who builds families up instead of displacing them. Do you believe I can? I don't know yet, but I'm curious enough to find out. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. The Portland Waterfront Project broke ground in late September. A mixed-use development with 200 residential units. 40% affordable. 60% market rate. Integrated throughout the building. Shared amenities. Community spaces on every floor. Rooftop garden. Ground floor retail prioritizing local businesses over chains. The design was beautiful, modern but warm. Quality finishes in every unit, regardless of price point. Marcus stood at the groundbreaking ceremony next to Sophia, both of them in hard hats, holding shovels for the ceremonial first dig. Press had come out. This was news. Marcus Vail, known for luxury developments, building affordable housing. Sophia Brennan, his former competitor, now partner on the project. What the press didn't know was the personal story underneath the business partnership. A reporter from the Seattle Times asked the obvious question. Mr. Vail, this is a departure from your typical projects. What inspired the change? Marcus looked at Sophia. She gave him a barely perceptible nod. I was challenged by someone I respect to think differently about success, to measure it by impact instead of just profit. This project is the result of that challenge. And Ms. Brennan, what made you decide to partner with Vail Industries after competing with them for months? Sophia smiled slightly. Because change is more important than competition. If we can prove this model works, other developers will follow. That matters more than protecting territory. The reporter scribbled notes, not realizing he was witnessing a father and daughter working together for the first time in their lives. After the ceremony, after the press left and the crowds dispersed, Marcus and Sophia stood at the edge of the construction site. We did it, Marcus said quietly. We actually did it. We broke ground. The hard part is building it right. You don't celebrate wins, do you? I celebrate when families move in, when the community thrives, when the 5-year data shows this actually worked. Breaking ground is just the beginning. Marcus laughed. You're exhausting, you know that. I am focused. There's a difference. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Marcus spoke. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. I might not answer. Your mother, Elena, how is she? Sophia's expression shifted. Protective. She's good. Teaching still. She loves it. Is she happy? Yes. She built a good life. A full life. Without me. Yes. Without you. Marcus nodded. I'm glad. That she's happy, I mean. She deserved better than what I gave her. She deserved a partner who stayed. But she survived without one. Thrived even. I'd like to apologize to her. If she'd be willing to see me. Sophia turned to face him fully. Why? Because I owe her more than I owe anyone. She raised our daughter alone. She sacrificed everything. The least I could do is say I'm sorry. And what would that apology accomplish? Would it change the past? Give her back the years she struggled? No, but it might give her closure, or at least acknowledgement of what she did. Sophia considered this. I'll ask her. But Marcus, don't expect forgiveness. She's moved past you. She might not need your apology. I understand, but I need to give it anyway. 2 weeks later, Sophia called. My mother agreed to meet you. This Saturday, 2 p.m., her house in Portland. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Okay, thank you. I won't be there. This is between you two. Understood. And Marcus? Don't hurt her again. She's given you more grace than you deserve. Don't make her regret it. Saturday arrived too quickly. Marcus drove to the address Sophia had given him. A modest neighborhood in outer Portland. Tree-lined streets. Small houses with gardens. The kind of neighborhood where people knew their neighbors. He found a house. A small craftsman-style home with a well-maintained yard. Flower boxes in the windows. A wooden porch with 2 rocking chairs. This is where Sophia grew up. This is where Elena raised their daughter alone. Marcus sat in his car for 5 minutes, gathering courage. Finally, he got out and walked to the front door. Before he could knock, it opened. Elena stood there. 24 years had passed, but Marcus recognized her immediately. Her hair was shorter, threaded with gray. Lines around her eyes from years of laughter and worry. But the warmth was still there. The kindness that had made him fall in love with her decades ago. Marcus. Her voice was neutral. Elena, thank you for seeing me. She stepped aside. Come in. The house was small but filled with light. Photographs covered every surface. Sophia at every age. School pictures. Graduations. Awards. A life documented in images Marcus had missed entirely. Elena led him to the living room. They sat in chairs across from each other. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Elena broke the silence. Sophia said you wanted to apologize. Though I know words are inadequate for what I did. Then why offer them? Because you deserve to hear them, even if they don't change anything, even if they're too late. Elena folded her hands in her lap. I am listening. Marcus took a breath. I am sorry. For leaving. For abandoning you when you were pregnant. For choosing my career over our family. For never looking back. For missing Sophia's entire childhood. For letting you carry all the responsibility alone. For being a coward. Elena listened without expression. I convinced myself I was doing the right thing. That you'd be better off without me. That my financial contribution would be enough, though apparently even that didn't happen. No, it didn't. I'm sorry for that too. For trusting someone else to handle my responsibility. For never checking. For being so eager to forget that I didn't even verify you were receiving support. We managed without it. You shouldn't have had to manage. You should have had a partner. Sophia should have had a father. Elena was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke, her voice measured and calm. Do you know what the hardest part was? Not the money, though that was brutal. Not the exhaustion, though I was tired for 20 years. The hardest part was watching Sophia ask about you. Watching her wonder why she wasn't enough to make you stay. Watching her blame herself for your choice. Each word was a knife. I told her over and over that your leaving wasn't about her. That she was perfect and loved and enough. But children internalize abandonment. It shaped her, Marcus. Your absence shaped who she became. I know. I see it. She's driven and independent and doesn't need anyone. Because she learned early that she couldn't count on the one person who should have been there. She's also compassionate and purposeful and uses her success to help others. Because she watched me struggle and chose to make sure other families didn't have to. Your absence made her strong. But that's not because of you. That's despite you. Marcus nodded. You did an incredible job raising her. I did what needed to be done. What you should have helped with. I know. Elena stood and walked to the mantel. Picked up a photo of Sophia at her law school graduation. She graduated top of her class. Full scholarship. Gave the commencement speech. I was so proud I cried through the whole ceremony. She set the photo down and turned to face Marcus. You missed that. You missed all of it. First steps, first words, first day of school, every birthday, every achievement, every moment she needed a father and had to make do without one. I can't get those moments back. No, you can't. So why are you here, Marcus? What do you want from me? Nothing. I don't want anything. I just wanted you to know that I see what I did. I understand what I cost you. What I cost Sophia. And I'm sorry. Elena studied him. Are you sorry you left? Or sorry it finally caught up with you? Both. I'm sorry I left. I'm sorry I was too cowardly to face what I'd done. I'm sorry I built a whole life trying to justify one terrible choice. And yes, I'm sorry that meeting Sophia forced me to confront all of it. At least you're honest. I've lied enough. To you. To myself. I'm done with that. Elena sat back down. Sophia told me you're working together. That you're trying to change how you build. I'm trying. She's teaching me. It's hard. Everything in me resists putting people before profit. But I'm learning. Why? Why now, after 25 years of being exactly who you chose to be? Marcus looked at the photographs around the room, at the evidence of the life he'd missed. Because I finally understand that I built an empire on sand. Everything I achieved means nothing if it didn't serve anyone beyond myself. Sophia showed me that. She's successful and purposeful and making a real difference. I'm successful and empty. I don't want to die empty, Elena. You think building affordable housing will fill that emptiness? No, but maybe it's a start. Maybe learning to measure success differently, learning to prioritize impact over income. Maybe that's how I become someone worth knowing. You're not doing this to earn Sophia's forgiveness. It was a statement, not a question. I'm doing it because it's right. Because I'm tired of being someone I'm ashamed of. If Sophia eventually forgives me, that's her choice. But that's not why I'm changing. Elena nodded slowly. Good. Because she doesn't owe you forgiveness. Neither do I. I know, but I don't hate you, Marcus. I did for a while. But hate is exhausting. I moved past it. I built a life I'm proud of. I raised a daughter I adore. Your absence doesn't define me anymore. I'm glad. Are you? Are you glad I moved on without needing you? Marcus considered the question honestly. Part of me wishes I'd been necessary. That you'd needed me. That my absence had left a hole only I could fill. But that's ego. The truth is, I'm glad you didn't need me. Glad you were strong enough to build a beautiful life without me. You deserve that. Elena's expression softened slightly. Thank you for saying that. It's true. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Elena spoke again. I won't tell you not to pursue a relationship with Sophia. That's between you two. But I will tell you this. Don't hurt her again. She's let you into her life, into her work. That's more grace than you've earned. Honor it. I will. I am. And don't expect her to fill the emptiness in your life. She has her own life. Her own purpose. She's not responsible for your redemption. I know. Elena stood, signaling the conversation was ending. I appreciate you coming. I needed to hear that you understand what you did. That you see the cost. Marcus stood too. Thank you for listening. For raising Sophia. For being the parent she needed when I refused to be. Elena walked him to the door. Before he left, she said one more thing. You asked if I'm happy. I am. I have work I love, a daughter who makes me proud, and a life built on my own terms. Your leaving devastated me at the time, but it also freed me to become who I was meant to be. I don't know if I would have found this version of myself if you'd stayed and resented us for holding you back. Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. It makes it complicated. Most important things are. Marcus walked back to his car. He sat behind the wheel for a long time, processing everything Elena had said. She'd moved on, built a life without him, found happiness despite his abandonment. It should have made him feel better. Instead, it drove home how thoroughly he'd been erased, how completely unnecessary he'd been. Elena and Sophia had built something beautiful without him. Now he had to figure out if there was any space in that beauty for a man trying to become someone worthy of it. The Portland waterfront project progressed over the next year. Marcus visited the site weekly, watched the building rise floor by floor, saw the vision he and Sophia had designed together become reality. He also continued restructuring Vail Industries. The other two major developments were redesigned along similar lines. Mixed income, community focus, impact over pure profit. His investors were skeptical at first. Some pulled out. Marcus found new ones who cared about more than quarterly returns. The board remained divided. Half believed in the new direction. Half thought Marcus had lost his mind. But slowly, the results started showing. Community support for Vail projects increased. Government partnerships expanded. Press coverage shifted from critical to curious to supportive. And the financials, while showing smaller profit margins, remained solid. Marcus proved it was possible to build ethically and still sustain a business. He also started spending more time with Sophia. Not just business meetings, real conversations. Coffee before site visits. Lunch after planning sessions. Slow, careful steps towards something resembling a relationship. Sophia kept her walls up, but occasionally, Marcus caught glimpses of the daughter underneath the competitor. Like the day they toured the nearly complete Portland project together. They walked through the affordable units, checked finishes, verified everything matched the quality promised. Sophia ran her hand along the kitchen counter in one unit. This is nice, really nice. Your team specified the materials. I just approved the budget. You approved a budget that treated affordable housing as worth quality investment. Most developers don't do that. Marcus looked around the space. Hardwood floors, updated appliances, large windows with water views. People living here work hard. They deserve to come home to something nice. Sophia looked at him. You're learning. I have a good teacher. They continued the tour. Reached the rooftop community garden. The view was spectacular. Portland skyline in one direction, river in the other. Raised beds ready for planting. Communal seating areas. This was your idea. Sophia said, the rooftop garden. I remembered you mentioned community gardens create connection. Thought fit. It's perfect. They stood at the railing, looking out at the city. Can I tell you something? Marcus asked. Always. This project, working with you, learning from you, it's the most meaningful thing I've done in my career. More meaningful than any deal I've closed, any building I've built, any profit I've generated. Sophia didn't respond immediately. Then quietly, why? Because it matters. Because families will live here who couldn't afford housing otherwise. Because we proved ethical development works. Because I got to work with my daughter on something that will outlast both of us. Sophia turned to face him. I'm not ready to call you my father. I know. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. I understand. But I don't hate you. I did for a long time. But working with you, watching you actually try to change, it's hard to maintain that anger. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to never forgive me. I know, but I'm tired of being angry. It takes energy I'd rather spend building things. Marcus smiled. You sound like your mother. Good. She's the best person I know. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Sophia spoke again. There's a family moving into this building next month. Single mother, 2 kids. She's a nurse at the community hospital. Works night shifts. She's been on waiting lists for affordable housing for 3 years. How do you know this? I know all the families moving in. I interviewed them. Approved applications. I wanted to make sure this building served people who really needed it. Of course you did. Her name is Jessica Torres. Her kids are 7 and 9. The 9-year-old wants to be a doctor. The 7-year-old is obsessed with dinosaurs. Marcus listened. She reminds me of my mom, working impossible hours, sacrificing everything for her kids, trying to build stability on an unstable foundation. And now she'll have a stable foundation. Because of this building, because we built it. Together. Sophia turned to face him fully. That matters to me. More than beating you in business. More than proving I'm better than you. Actually housing families like Jessica, like my mom was, that's what success looks like. I'm beginning to understand that. Are you? Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? Marcus considered this. 6 months ago, I might have been performing, saying the right things to earn your approval. But now, standing here, seeing this building we created, knowing the families who will live here, I actually feel it. The purpose, the meaning. It's real for me now. Sophia studied his face. I believe you. Yeah. Yeah, you're still learning. You still default to profit thinking sometimes. But you're trying. That counts for something. Thank you. The Portland Waterfront Project had its grand opening in early December. Ribbon-cutting ceremony. Tool. Press coverage. City officials giving speeches about innovative housing solutions. Marcus and Sophia stood together as the first families received their keys. Jessica Torres was among them. Her 2 kids bouncing with excitement. The 9-year-old, Miguel, already asking about which room would be his. The 7-year-old, Sophia, yes, named Sophia, clutching a stuffed dinosaur and spinning in circles. Jessica's eyes were wet as she accepted the keys. I can't believe this is real. An actual home. A safe neighborhood. Good schools nearby. I've been praying for this for so long. Sophia hugged her. Welcome home. Marcus watched the exchange. Saw the impact of what they'd built. Not abstract impact measured in data points, but real human impact measured in tears of relief and children's laughter. This is what mattered. This is what he'd been missing his entire career. That evening, after the ceremony ended and the crowds dispersed, Sophia found Marcus standing in the lobby. You did good today, she said. We did good. Fair enough. They walked out together. The December air was cold but clear. Holiday lights decorated the neighboring buildings. Can I buy you dinner? Marcus asked. To celebrate. Sophia hesitated. They'd had working lunches, coffee meetings, but never dinner. Dinner felt more personal. Just dinner. Marcus added. Not a reconciliation. Not a big moment. Just 2 people who worked hard on something sharing a meal. Sophia smiled slightly. Okay, just dinner. They found a small Italian place a few blocks away. Quiet. Warm. The kind of restaurant locals frequented but tourists never found. They ordered pasta and wine and talked about the project, about the families moving in, about plans for the other 2 developments. And then, gradually, the conversation shifted. Can I ask about your childhood? Marcus ventured. Sophia considered whether to answer, then decided honesty served them both better than walls. It was good. Hard, but good. Mom made sure of that. What was she like as a mother? Present. That's the best word. She was always present. Even when she was exhausted from working double shifts, she'd still help with homework, still ask about my day, still make me feel like the most important person in her world. Marcus listened. We didn't have much, but we had enough. She was creative about it. Thrift store shopping became treasure hunting. Library trips were adventures. She made limitations feel like opportunities. She sounds amazing. She is. You said she never remarried. No, she dated a little when I was in high school. Nice men, but nothing stuck. I think part of her was too busy raising me to prioritize her own relationships. That's my fault too. Yes, it is. You took a lot from both of us. Marcus nodded. What was the hardest part? Growing up without a father. Sophia took a sip of wine. Father-daughter dances at school. Watching other kids with their dads at soccer games. Career day, when everyone brought their parents and I only had one. But mostly it was wondering who you were, what you were like, whether I inherited anything from you besides your eyes. Did Elena tell you about me? Basic facts. Your name, that you've been married, that you left before I was born. She never poisoned me against you, never made you the villain. She just said you made a choice, and that choice didn't include us. How did you feel about that? Confused mostly. How do you hate someone you've never met? How do you miss someone who was never there? I was angry sometimes, especially as a teenager. But mostly I just felt like there was a piece of my story missing. And now, having met me, does the missing piece feel filled? Sophia considered this carefully. No, you're not the missing piece. You're just a person who happens to be biologically connected to me. The missing piece, the father I needed, that's still missing. You can't retroactively fill that role. I know, but Marcus, here's what I'm learning. I don't need that role filled anymore. I'm 30 years old. I'm successful and independent. I don't need a father to complete me. Then what am I to you? I don't know yet. We're figuring that out. Maybe we'll be colleagues who respect each other. Maybe eventually friends. Maybe something more. But it has to be built from where we are now, not from where we should have been. Marcus set down his fork. That's fair. More than fair. Is it enough for you? Building something new instead of reclaiming what you lost. It has to be, because you're right. I can't be your father in the traditional sense. I missed that chance. But maybe I can be someone who supports you, who learns from you, who builds things with you that matter. Sophia smiled. I can work with that. They finished dinner talking about future projects, about Beacon's expansion plans, about Vale Industries' continued restructuring. When they walked out into the December night, the city was quiet. Peaceful. Thank you, Marcus said. For dinner. For the project. For giving me a chance I don't deserve. You're welcome. And Marcus? You're earning it. Slowly, but you're earning it. He drove back to Seattle that night, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not hope that he could fix the past. That was impossible. But hope that he could build a future worth living. A relationship with Sophia built on mutual respect instead of obligation. A career that created impact instead of just income. Hope that he could become someone worthy of the daughter he'd abandoned. Over the next year, Marcus and Sophia fell into a rhythm. Monthly dinners to discuss projects and life. Weekly calls about business and occasionally personal things. Occasional visits to construction sites together. Slowly, carefully, they built something resembling a relationship. It wasn't traditional, wasn't father-daughter in the conventional sense, but it was real, and it was theirs. Elena watched from a distance, proud of Sophia for choosing grace without sacrificing boundaries. Proud of Marcus for actually doing the work of change instead of just talking about it. On Sophia's 31st birthday, Marcus sent flowers to her office. Not an extravagant arrangement, just simple, beautiful flowers with a card. Happy birthday. Proud of you. Marcus. Sophia called him that evening. Thank you for the flowers. You're welcome. You didn't have to do that. I know. I wanted to. I missed 30 birthdays. I like to acknowledge the ones I don't miss anymore. Sophia was quiet. Then, would you like to have dinner this weekend? My mom's coming up from Portland. We usually celebrate together. You could join us if you want. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Are you sure? I don't want to intrude on your tradition. I asked my mom. She said it's my birthday, my choice. I'd like you there. If you're comfortable, I'd love to be there. That Saturday, Marcus met Sophia and Elena at a restaurant Sophia chose. Nothing fancy. A neighborhood place with good food and better atmosphere. Elena was already there when Marcus arrived. She greeted him with a polite hug. Not warm, but not cold either. Marcus. Elena. Thank you for letting me join. This is Sophia's celebration. She makes the guest list. Sophia arrived a few minutes later, and they sat down to dinner. It was awkward at first, the weight of history heavy between them. But Sophia kept the conversation moving. Talked about Beacon's latest project, about the Portland building's first-year success rates, about plans for expansion. Marcus contributed stories about Vale Industries' transformation, about the learning curve, about his team's growing commitment to the new model. Elena listened mostly, occasionally adding observations, watching the dynamic between Marcus and Sophia with careful eyes. By dessert, the conversation had relaxed. Marcus told a story about a recent site inspection where everything that could go wrong did. Equipment failures, permit issues, a contractor who showed up to the wrong address. Sophia laughed. Welcome to development. It's chaos held together by determination and coffee. So much coffee. Marcus agreed. Elena actually smiled. You're learning that success isn't as clean as magazine covers suggest. I'm learning a lot of things. Mostly that I knew a lot less than I thought I did. After dinner, they walked Sophia to her car. She hugged her mother first, long and tight. Thanks for coming, Mom. Love you. Love you too, baby. Happy birthday. Then she turned to Marcus. Hesitated only briefly before hugging him too. Quick but genuine. Thanks for coming. It meant something. Thank you for inviting me. It meant everything. Sophia got in her car and drove away. Marcus and Elena stood on the sidewalk. She's doing well. Elena said, happy, fulfilled. Because of you. Everything good in her is because of you. Not everything. She got you drive. Your strategic mind. Your determination. Those things serve her well. Without your foundation, those things would have made her ruthless. You gave her purpose to go with the drive. Elena looked at him. You're different than you were. I'm trying to be. No. You are different. I can see it. The way you talk about your work. The The way you interact with Sophia. You've actually changed. Is that surprising? Yes. Most people don't change. They say they will, but they revert to who they've always been. You're actually doing the work. I have good motivation. I want to be someone Sophia doesn't regret knowing. Elena nodded. Keep it up. She's letting you in slowly. Don't make her regret it. I won't. I promise. Elena started to walk to her own car, then turned back. Marcus, I want to say something. Okay. I forgive you. Marcus felt his eyes burn. Elena. I'm not saying what you did was okay. It wasn't. And I'm not saying we're friends. We're not. But I'm done carrying anger toward you. It doesn't serve me. And watching you actually try to be better, watching you build something meaningful with Sophia, that's enough for me to let go of the resentment. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Probably not. But I'm not giving it for you. I'm giving it for me. So I can move forward without that weight. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. Take care of yourself, Marcus. And take care of whatever relationship you're building with our daughter. She's giving you something precious. Don't waste it. Elena got in her car and drove away. Marcus stood on the sidewalk for a long time. Forgiveness. He'd been forgiven by the woman he'd hurt most. Not because he deserved it, but because she chose grace. 2 years after the Portland waterfront project opened, Marcus Vail stood on stage at the National Real Estate Summit. The same summit where he'd received a Lifetime Achievement Award, where he'd first heard Sophia challenge everything he believed. This time, he wasn't receiving an award. He was giving a keynote. The title, Measuring Success Differently. One developer's journey from profit to purpose. Sophia sat in the audience, front row, watching her father speak to the same industry she'd challenged years before. Marcus began. 3 years ago, I stood on this stage accepting an award for building an empire. I was proud. I felt successful. I thought I'd made it. He paused. I was wrong. The audience leaned forward. Success isn't measured by buildings constructed or dollars accumulated. It's measured by lives changed, communities strengthened, families housed who otherwise wouldn't be. He clicked to a slide. The Portland Waterfront Project. This building represents a fundamental shift in how I think about development. Mixed income, community-focused, proof that profit and purpose aren't mutually exclusive. Next slide. Families living in the building. These are the people who measure my success now. Jessica Torres, a nurse who can finally afford safe housing near her job. Miguel Torres, her son who wants to be a doctor and now has stability to pursue that dream. Little Sophia Torres, who loves dinosaurs and finally has her own room. Marcus looked directly at his daughter in the audience. I was challenged by someone I respect deeply to rethink everything. To measure success by families who never have to wonder where they'll sleep. To build things that matter beyond my bank account. He shared data from the Portland Project and Vail Industries' other restructured developments. Occupancy rates. Community satisfaction scores. Economic impact. The profit margins are smaller. I won't lie about that. But the impact is infinitely larger. And I sleep better knowing my work serves people instead of just serving myself. He ended with a challenge to the audience. I wasted 25 years building the wrong things for the wrong reasons. Don't make the same mistake. Build things that matter. Measure success by impact, not income. Create developments that strengthen communities instead of displacing them. Final slide. A quote. We don't measure success by skyscrapers. We measure it by families who never have to wonder where they'll sleep. The audience erupted in applause. Standing ovation. Sophia stood too, pride evident on her face. Marcus left the stage and found her waiting backstage. You quoted me, she said. I quoted the person who taught me what success actually means. That was good, Marcus. Really good. Think it'll make a difference? For some people, the ones ready to hear it. Others will keep building the way they always have. But you planted seeds. That matters. They walked out together into the San Francisco afternoon. Can I tell you something? Marcus asked. Always. 3 years ago, you were my biggest rival. My competition. The person taking everything I thought I wanted. And you know what? What? You were right. Everything you took from me, every deal you won, every property you acquired, you used it better than I would have. You built things that mattered. I would have built monuments to my own ego. Sophia smiled. You're building things that matter now, too. Because you showed me how. They reached the corner where their paths diverged. Sophia heading to the airport. Marcus to a meeting with potential investors in the new model. I'm proud of you, Sophia said, for actually changing, for doing the hard work, for becoming someone different than who you were. Marcus felt emotion clog his throat. That means everything coming from you. I know. Sophia, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think you'll ever be able to call me Dad? Sophia was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe someday. But Marcus, you need to understand. You're earning a relationship with me. You've done the work. You've changed. I respect you, even like you. But the word Dad carries weight. It represents someone who was there, who raised me, who shaped me. And I wasn't. No, you weren't. You're the man who's here now, who's working with me now, who's building things with me that matter. That's valuable. That's meaningful. But it's not the same as being a father. I understand. Do you? Do you really understand that I can respect you, care about you even, without giving you the title you didn't earn? Marcus nodded. Edo. And you're right. I haven't earned it. Maybe I never will. But I'm grateful for whatever relationship we have. Whatever you're willing to give me. Sophia hugged him. Longer this time. Warmer. You're a good man, Marcus Vale. Not a perfect man. Not a father in the traditional sense. But a good man trying to do better. That's enough. They separated. Sophia walked toward a rideshare. Marcus toward the conference center. He watched her go. This incredible woman who shared his DNA but was built entirely by Elena's love and sacrifice. His daughter. Not in the way he'd hoped when he first learned she existed. Not in the fairy tale reconciliation he'd imagined. But in the real, complicated, honest way that mattered more. Marcus had spent his life chasing success, building empires, accumulating wealth, seeking recognition, and he'd achieved it all. But standing on that San Francisco street corner, watching his daughter disappear into the crowd, Marcus understood something he'd missed for 50 years. Success wasn't what you built. It was who you built it for. It was the lives you changed, the communities you strengthened, the people who were better because you existed. He'd built an empire that would be forgotten a generation after he died. But Sophia was building something that would last. Communities that housed families. Developments that strengthened neighborhoods. A legacy measured in lives changed instead of dollars earned. And he'd been allowed, against all odds and fairness, to be part of it. Not as the father who raised her, but as the man learning from the daughter he didn't deserve. Marcus turned back toward the conference center. He had investors to meet, projects to discuss, more work to do building things that actually mattered. The empire he'd spent 25 years constructing was being transformed piece by piece into something that served others instead of just himself. It would take time, maybe the rest of his life. But for the first time in 50 years, Marcus Vale was building something worth building. Not just buildings, but bridges. Between who he'd been and who he was becoming. Between the success he'd chased and the purpose he'd finally found. Between a father who'd abandoned everything and a daughter strong enough to teach him what truly mattered. The work wasn't finished. It might never be finished, but it was meaningful. And that, Marcus finally understood, was what success actually looked like.